Today's guest is David Bond. Now, many locals in Rocky will know David as the business owner who's in the middle of restoring the historic Lakes Creek Hotel. Social media sensation with the amount of videos, photos, and sharing that David's doing about his journey restoring this historic site. But not only is David busy with that, he's also a small business owner with a pest control business. He's happily married with his wife and two young children and is just an all round great Rocky local. So thank you so much for joining the podcast today, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very much appreciate it.
Yeah, no, as I shared with you when I first reached out, you're attracting a lot of attention, and I think what you're sharing with regards to this restoration of the Lakes Creek Hotel and what you're doing for the community is worth celebrating. And to be honest, you were specially requested as a guest.
Oh,
As,
right. Okay.
as I mentioned on my messenger as well, there's a few people talking about what you're doing, but in particular, my dad said to me,
Yes, yes.
"You need to go and interview that David person."
Oh, that's lovely.
Easy, Dad, I'll do that for you. Merry Christmas, there's your gift.
Nice, easy one for you, hey? Yeah,
Yeah,
lovely, lovely.
he's gonna love it. But, before we really get stuck into it, I would like to ask you if you could be an expert in anything at all in the world, what would it be and why?
Oh, yeah, look, that's a tough one, that. Phew. I thought about this question, and to be honest with you, I'm not really too sure. If I could learn about anything instantaneously and understand it to its core roots, I guess it would be mind reading. Or being able to read people's body language and understand, where they're at in their life, basically, and have that ability to be able to connect with people on a much higher level, I guess. But that comes with time. So maybe one day I might be able to read people's minds, but at the moment, I certainly can't.
But now you could probably read their body language and you can
Oh,
pick it on the
yes.
mind later.
Yeah, yeah. So, I've had a lot of experience in the past, spending time with people from all walks of life. So that does give you the ability to kind of read people's emotions a little bit and kind of
Mm.
feed off that and interpret that. So that has helped me along the road. But there's always room for improvement, isn't there? But being able to read somebody's mind would be absolutely fantastic, wouldn't it? Really,
Would
there'd
be
be no
pretty
confusion
scary.
about nothing, would there?
That's it,
Oh,
yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I love it. So getting into the nitty-gritty of your hotel restoration.
sure.
So before we really get stuck into that, though, I'm really curious as to what are those key moments and life experiences that you've had along your journey that have essentially shaped who you are today and what you're doing today? So, like, what's your story look like?
Geez, where do I start? So I guess I grew up just as an average kid in unfortunately, a very poor household. We had no money at all when we were kids. We were lucky to get Christmas presents and all that kind of stuff, right? So when you grow up in an environment like that, it builds a certain level of resilience and understanding that, life isn't always perfect and it doesn't always go the way you expect it. You just crack on basically, and then living in where we. I mean, like I said, I don't want to say too much about my past, really, my younger years, but those younger years definitely shape who you are when you become a young adult, and then later on in life as well. You can refer back to what happened when you were younger, and you can go, obviously, I don't want that to happen again, and I don't want my children to experience what I experienced. So, I guess since I had kids with my wonderful wife Lily, that really opened my eyes more so to maybe instead of thinking about just myself and my wife, and to think about our children and our children's future. And then it actually started making me think about other children's futures. So, I guess once you have kids, your eyes are opened to a different kind of level of thinking, I guess you could say. So now it's not about me and my wife anymore. It's about what we can do to assist our children, so that way they don't have an upbringing like what I did, for example.
Mm.
That's not good for anybody. But I was one of the fortunate ones, I guess, that over the years I had some pretty good guidance here and there from some mentors, not heaps, but some, and I was able to pull myself out of that mess, I guess you could say, and it set me up to become who I am today. Really, you got to be thankful of your past and where you've come from, as long as you can kind of understand it and move on from it. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people hold on to their past too much and don't kind of let it go. But it doesn't
Mm.
help you if you don't. So you're better off just moving forward with it and seeing how you can improve on that, really. So,
But as a small business owner myself, I know the resilience it takes and the hard work and the heartache and the constant push. And it makes complete sense now when I, of course, observe you as a business owner in the pest control industry and then
sure.
now what you're doing with the hotel. That makes a lot of sense. Your determination, grit, and resilience it just overshadows everything. You can just see it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm very fortunate that I guess because of the mentors and where, like I said, where I've been and what I've done throughout my life, it has created that level of resilience, which I can pretty much tackle anything. It doesn't matter what it is, pretty much, and I'll be able to figure it out, which I guess is quite fortunate. Like I said, my past has shaped me to be able to do that. So I'm very respectful of my past and understanding of it. And I just hope that other people that have experienced hardships when they were younger and going through all that kind of stuff, it helps them to become resilient as well. So, and there's always options out there. You just gotta figure it out, really, I guess. But yeah, in terms of business, look, like you said, you've been in business for many years yourself. I've had a few different businesses now, and it's hard work. Businesses are hard work, and
Mm,
it's really for me, it's really upsetting when I hear local businesses are closing their doors because of the hardships that come with owning a business. I don't want to mention names, but I was speaking to a acquaintance of mine who's about to close his doors, and the reason why he's doing it is because workers' has just skyrocketed for him. And there's a bit of a backstory to that, but it's a backstory that shouldn't have occurred in that way. And I just think to myself, yeah, what's it coming to when you can't even just have a fair go anymore, especially in
mm,
business. And smaller businesses are just closing all the time. And that doesn't help anyone. We need small business. It helps the cash flow around the town, and small family businesses like ourselves will, at the moment, we don't have any employees. It's just going to be myself and my wife running the bar because we are trying to keep it genuinely family or operated. But, employing, you're helping out your locals and all that kind of stuff as well. So small business is the backbone of our towns. And it's very important that we embrace that and the locals get behind small business and support small business as well. So,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is very upsetting when you see a small business close its door for one reason or a number of reasons. And insurance costs, I'm preaching to the
Oh,
converted here with you, but
it's a joke.
insurance costs are crippling, like crippling. I look at it, when it comes in every year, just the different ones, of course, like not all, there's workers' compensation, of course, and then there's your business insurance and everything that comes with that.
Sure.
And I just look at it and I think,
How do you do it?
yeah,
How do you do it, right? So,
yes,
just my public liability insurance that I've just taken out for when we open the bar, I have to sell a lot of beer to be able to just cover the insurance policy, just for the public liability. That's not building insurance. That's just public liability.
yeah,
So that's ridiculous. And the list of stuff that you have to fulfill, like my obligations to uphold my end of the bargain, I guess, in terms of insurance is
mhm,
just through the roof. The legislation, the workplace health and safety, everything that goes with it nowadays is just. I really can understand why people say, you know what, I'm out. I've had enough. I'm
yeah,
just going to go see if I can get a job out in the mines, drive a truck, don't have to worry about nothing, get 120,000 a year or whatever they're on. And yes, I might be away for 7 days or whatever the case may be, but at least I don't have to worry about it, right? But then that
yeah,
means there's less cash in the town, really, in terms
mm.
of business. There's less employment locally as well. So it has a huge knock-on effect, and certainly, there's things that can be done better. That's for sure.
And small business, particularly in your industry that you're moving into with hospitality, it's 24/7. You don't stop working at 5 o'clock and then you stop thinking about your work because you actually own the business. But
Yeah, that's right.
anyway, we won't go on a rabbit hole of small business and how hard it is. But
Yeah, yeah.
we will, though, we will celebrate your journey, though, because I am confident that a lot of our Rocky community and extended, of course, will come to town to visit the historic Lakes Creek Hotel. So
Yeah,
tell us
we'd
a
love
little
to
bit
have a
about what inspired that journey. Like what was that turning point that has led you on this path of hospitality and the bar?
Sure, sure, sure. So I guess one of my things that I did many, many years ago when I left the military, I wanted a bit of a change. So I ended up getting into hospitality, and I did run a small pub in the UK for a period of time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Just the connection with the community, just the enjoyment the look of enjoyment on people's faces when they're all having a good time and they're listening to music, they're chatting to their mates, they're having a beer, just typical Aussies just sitting around. Obviously, that was back in the UK, not here, but I would imagine it will be very, very similar. And I really, really enjoyed working in that industry. The only issue is with that industry back then was the wages was quite low. So obviously, I decided to go and do other stuff eventually. But no, I really enjoyed it. So when interesting enough, when I don't know where I can't remember exactly where it was. It might have been a Facebook feed or something. The gentleman, the previous owner to this building, I must have seen an ad or something and went, "Oh, check out that old building. That thing looks awesome." It's got a lot of you can see there's a lot of history there, and it's a bit of an icon in town. And there's not many buildings like this anymore. And anyway, interestingly enough, I found out that it was for sale, so I started looking further into it, and I managed to come and have a look. And I brought Lily to have a look at it. And funny enough, she walked in and she just went, "Yeah, nah, 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 I'm out, nah." She just turned around and walked straight back out. It's actually pretty funny, right? So it took me a while to convince her that I think that we can do something with this building. I think that to become a custodians of such a historic site, it's within my capacity, at least. I know that my wife just seen the amount of work that we need to do and just went, "Yeah, nah, I'm out." But eventually, I guess my wife has the confidence in my abilities. So it just took a little bit of convincing. And actually, it was her mum that managed to convince her because her mum's a successful businesswoman.
Yeah.
She's retired now and she's living with us, which is lovely. And when I brought mum through, I said, look, we can do this, we can do that. We got accommodation upstairs, we got the bar, we got the big beer garden out the back eventually, not at the moment. But eventually we'll have that up and running. So she could see the potential for this site. She could see the amount of work too, but the possibilities are kind of endless with a building like this, really, within the limitations of what you can do, of course. But yeah, in terms of being a community-based thing as well, I'm very community-minded, have been for a number of years now. And again, I just think it's fantastic that we can be custodians of such a historic site, which has a very significant cultural history with Rocky. They built this building because of the meatworks, and Rocky was built basically off the back of the meatworks. So when this is actually the third building on this site. The first two, unfortunately, got burnt down. And then this one was built in 1895 off the top of my head. I should know that, but anyway. I know, yeah, it's 135 years it is. So one of the things that we've done since we got in here is just go through the process of ensuring that the building will stand for another 135 plus years. So hence the video you've seen of me under the building, basically saying, come on, give us a break. Rome wasn't
Yeah.
built in a day. There's a lot of work that needs to be done here. And it took us 3 weeks just to re-level the building within about 30 mil of its original, where it sat originally. So yeah, a lot of work. It takes time. But
Yeah.
no, so like I said, when Mum's seen it and she's seen the potential here and the links with the community and all the rest of it, she then convinced Lily, and Lily's like, "Okay, yeah, righto, I think we can give it a go." So yeah, and we just went, "Okay, well, let's just crack on with it." So we actually sold our residential home and we physically live on site. So yeah, kids love it. They got plenty of room to run around. They got the huge gardens and everything to run around in, and we're settled now. So we are definitely established here now, and we're not
Yeah.
going anywhere for a long time, hopefully, because we love the place now.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
That is a mammoth investment, not only of savings, but you've lived there. That
Yeah,
is
so yeah, we put our heart and soul into the place, and
mm,
we've put everything we've got into the building. So we are fully committed. There's no two which ways about that. But again, it's a commitment of love, I guess, because I'm very hands on too. And when I was younger, part of my we were talking about mentors before. One of my mentors from when I was a teenager, myself and my stepfather, we used to actually go over to France and renovate cottages and gîtes and stuff like that over in France. And that's a complete gut job and rebuild the entire inside, plumbing, electrical. Obviously, we can't do that. We got to get trades now. But back then, it was a little bit different. You can get away with certain things back then. Anything. We did pretty much everything you can imagine on some of those buildings. So I learned a lot of skills from him, and I'm very thankful that I did. And amazingly, I managed to retain most of that knowledge, which is seeing me through this build here as well. Because again, I'm very hands on. So I normally get up around 7:30 in the morning. I assist with the boys, get them off to school. And then from 8 o'clock onwards, I'm pretty much bang straight into work. And I normally don't go to bed until about midnight. So yeah, we're really making some progress. So it's good. But,
Yeah.
you know, hard work pays off, right?
It does, it does. That I was saying before we hit record that I think what you're doing on social media is fantastic because you're bringing the community along this journey with you.
Sure.
For many of us, we can drive past that building, a couple of times a week or once a week or once every now and then. And it just slowly over time improves. But you're actually inviting people in to have a look at what that journey looks like when you are trying to work within the constraints of, a historical building of
Sure.
135 years.
Yeah.
To hear the experience, like I didn't know you had that experience over in France, of course, but it's sort of like the puzzle pieces like a forming or landing, from military and service and, childhood into raising you into the resilient person that you are, then of course you'll be keeping the building pest free.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Um,
definitely no pests here, that's
yes.
for sure.
So you've just like this collection of experience and education and knowledge that you have is all coming together in this building. And yeah, your heart and soul is evident already, and it's not even up and running, but it will be soon.
Yeah, yeah. So we're open on Friday this week, from 3 p.m. till midnight. I just want to let everybody know that we'll be stop serving at 11:30, and then everybody will have 30-minute grace period to finish up and go home. We don't want people staying till the early hours in the morning. It doesn't help the local community. We're trying to be respectful of the locals as well, with noise and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we're setting those times.
Mm.
But I think it's appropriate anyway. To be honest with you, we're trying to set up a family orientated community orientated establishment here.
Yep.
So we don't want to upset all the locals. But yeah, no, we're very excited. So we have a live singer coming on Friday and the Saturday from 6 o'clock till 10. So that's quite exciting. I've actually never heard them myself sing, but I've been told they know how to read the crowd and they know how to play accordingly. So it should be a good night. I hope
Mm.
so anyway. Especially with, like you
No.
said, with the socials, the feedback we've
Yes.
been getting from the socials has been it's just been amazing, to be honest with you. I never expected, when we took over the Facebook page and we had 1,200 followers, that had grown to, just shy of 7,500 followers now.
Mm.
And every day we're getting more and more people interested in the project. And I think you're right. It's because we inadvertently, initially I wasn't thinking about putting too much on Facebook because,
Mhm.
nowadays you got to be careful with what you put up there and rah, 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 too many keyboard warriors around the place, if I'm going to be honest. But we decided, no, look, let's do something here so the local community can see what we're doing with the building and get involved. Like you said, they're along for the ride, and we love
Yeah.
that now. We think it's
Mm.
great. My wife does not like being on the camera. I've tried to encourage her to be on the camera, but she's just like, no, that's your department. I'll deal with the background stuff. You deal with the camera. I'm starting to get used to it, I guess, as well. But yeah, look, I'm quite shocked at how many views we've had on a lot of the videos, and I do think that it's nice that the local community are behind us. I definitely get that feeling. So I can't wait to serve people a nice cold beer behind the bar. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree it will be. So tell me a little bit about you've spoken a lot about your community focus, which is evident in almost everything that you do. Well, that I've observed, of course. And tell me a little bit about what living in Rocky means to you and what does community really mean to you deep down?
Yeah, okay. So, interestingly, when we came to Australia, Lily and I were backpackers. We come here together as backpackers, and we didn't realize, this is a funny story. We didn't realize how big Australia was, right? So we actually originally come here with 2 suitcases and $500 in our back pocket, and that was it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we had no idea because I come from the UK. She's from Taiwan. They're both very very small countries. You can travel from one side of the country to the other in like 8 hours. So when we come here, we ended up in Brisbane, and then we did the whole typical backpacker thing and traveled around as much as we could with the limited funding we had at the time. Picked veggies and fruit and whatever else. Lily's fallen out of a couple of trees here and there, which is quite amusing. Anyway, that's another topic. So we come here together, and we really loved everything here in Australia, and we decided that we wanted to settle here and make a life here. And Australia is very, very similar to the UK, or how the UK was, say, 10 plus years ago. The community is still quite strong here. Everyone likes to get on with their mates and have a beer, like I said, and community in the UK is kind of gone now, unfortunately. You've got little cohorts of communities, of course, but nothing like you really have here. And anyway, so we really, really enjoy living here in Australia. And we become citizens a few years ago to make sure that we're able to stay here, right? And raise a family and get involved in the local community. So, look, the reason why we come to Rocky, interestingly enough, was as we were traveling up the coast doing the backpacker scene, we stayed in Gladstone, we went to Mackay, we did Airlie Beach, Brisbane, all different places out west and wherever else. We looked at Rocky and we went, right, if we're going to live anywhere, where are we going to live? We have to pick somewhere. Where are we going to live? And then we started going through our experiences as backpackers going through the towns. And we actually sat down and wrote a list of the towns that we've been to and what was the positives and negatives of those towns, what we wanted to achieve, I guess, as a young couple at that time. Obviously, we wanted to settle. We wanted to get a good job. We wanted the cost of living to be relatively low so that way we can, eventually have a family. We can afford to buy a home, all this kind of stuff, right? So then we looked at all the different areas, and Rocky just stuck out as just a really, really nice town with a good family feel to it. And not only that, 15 odd years ago when we did come to Rocky, the cost of living was actually a lot lower than what it is now. You look at house prices now, they've doubled in that period of time. So it's getting pretty expensive even to buy a house here now. But back then it wasn't, it was within our means, right? And we weren't stretched. So, like, for example, if we went to Mackay, the house prices were probably 100K more for the same style home that you could buy here in Rocky. So ultimately we said, no, we think this is a good town for us to come and settle. And we love it here. We're not going anywhere. Clearly, we decided to plan our routes even further, and hence why we ended up buying this historic building here, so we can really plant those roots into the community, and that hopefully we'll be able to help out the community as the years go on, and give back to the community as much as the community's given us. So we wouldn't be here without the support of the community. So definitely thank you to everybody out there that has supported us, especially in business, and just friends and everybody else we met along the way. It's just been, look, it's a lovely town. I'd encourage anyone to come and live here. I still think that there's a lot of potential with this town, and it's definitely grown since we've been here. I think when we first come here, there was only probably 60,000 people. I think there's like 82,000 now. So that's a fairly large increase in that period of time. So I hope that the town still manages to keep that close connection that the community has with each other. I know from experience that as a town grows, the community tends to kind of drift apart a little bit. And we certainly don't want that to happen. We want it to be more connected, really, if we can. Just a bigger family, basically, So, but yeah, no, we love Rocky.
No, that's so good. Such a great story too. I absolutely agree. We need to do everything in our power to maintain our sense of community, and we do live in a bit of a unique spot in Queensland and Australia, and
Yeah.
we're very lucky. The people that
Yeah.
live here know, and yeah, it's almost like we're sitting on a bit of a secret here.
Yeah, I think so. I think that by the time my boys become young adults and have their own children, Rocky is going to end up being a fairly large epicenter, I would say. I could be wrong, but if you just look at the way we've grown as a town over the last 10, 15 years, it definitely indicates that some pretty big things are going to happen here in the future. And I really love that. Other than if we can keep the community together whilst that happens, then that's ideal. Because like I said before, most towns that grow exponentially ended up drifting apart. And we got to try and grow, but also keep that community together. Maybe I guess that's another reason why we got involved in the hotel, to have a community base, I guess, where people can come and just, reestablish that community or keep it together. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So you have already shared so much about your journey and your life, but if you can pinpoint like one thing that stands out and it's essentially shaped who you are, whether it was like the biggest challenge you've had to overcome or your greatest achievement, one thing that's really shaped your perspective on how you approach life, what would that be?
I think to be honest with you, it was when I joined the military. Everyone knows the military, when you go through basic training, they break you down and then they build you back up. I learned pretty quickly that they didn't break me. And I think that's because my younger years, mentally, I'm pretty tough. But on the same hand, they taught me a lot of skills that I didn't have prior to that. And they taught me how to be part of a community, because that's what the military are, right? All the soldiers, they're a community, they're a family. You have to trust each other. You have to work with each other, no matter what. Whether you like each other or not, you learn how to work with each other in a very successful way. And you don't often learn those skills outside of the military, because it's not normal to learn those kind of skills really, unless you naturally kind of learn them. Or maybe you might be lucky when you go through school and you do some extracurricular stuff that might assist, like scouts and all that kind of stuff. It's all kind of lead in the same way, but once you become a soldier, you're always a soldier, right? So I think that has definitely assisted me along. But I would say the biggest thing that I guess you could say, made me who I am today, and believe it or not, is actually my wife. So us fellas have a habit
That
of,
was
we have a habit of being fellas, right? So when we're not involved and we're not in a loving relationship, I guess you could say we kind of just do our thing, right? We just kind of drift along and just crack on, but we never seem to. Some people still manage to get somewhere, but to be honest with you, without the support of my wife, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm very, very lucky and fortunate that throughout my travels through Europe and Asia, that I met my wife, and we didn't click initially. Actually, it was quite a funny story, but that's for another time. But over time, we worked it out, and we stuck with each other now. Put it that way. But without my wife, I certainly wouldn't be where I am. So that to me, that's two things: one, the military, and then later on when I met my wife, and she helped me stay on the straight and narrow, I guess you could say. So yeah, thanks, bub.
no, that's fantastic. She's gonna have to put herself on camera soon so everyone can see this amazing
Yeah, no, she
behind the
won't. I've
scenes.
tried. Honestly, I've tried. She won't. She won't.
Well, you know what everyone will have to do? They'll have to go to the Lakes Creek Hotel and
Yeah, and meet her. Yeah,
and
that's
meet
right.
her.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. That's right. Yeah. So
meet the famous
interestingly
Lily.
enough, she's not too sure. She's never worked behind a bar before, so she's actually quite nervous, which is normal for anybody if they've never done
Understandable
something
completely.
before. But so just initially, if everyone can have some patience,
Can
but
imagine she'll be quite efficient at it in no
I think so. Yeah,
time.
yeah. And my wife, she is very, very good with working with people as well. She comes from an education background. Her entire family come from an education background, so they're really good with working with people on all ages. So I think once she nails the ins and outs of the workings of the bar, I think the
Mm.
rest of it will just naturally flow for her. So it's just the initial. She's definitely a bit nervous.
Yeah, no, completely understandable.
Uh,
Everyone else would be in the same boat.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's right.
Tell me, it's a bit of an obvious question because it's like, what keeps you driving every day? Like, what keeps you getting up every day and putting one foot forward? But essentially, you've gone all in on this. You and your family have gone all in on this. So,
Yeah, yeah, we have.
uh, what sort of advice would you give to the next generation coming along after us? You know, that drive and that determination that you have. What sort of a lesson could you shape that into?
Look, everyone's different with how they deal with things, right? So, I guess just give it a fair crack. Just give it a go, see what happens. If it fails and you're young enough, well, just rebuild. At least you've given it a go. You've experienced what not to do if it does fail. Most businesses or most business owners, they will fail once or twice, and then they'll figure it out, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, I know what not to do this time. And when they start up a new business or different venture or whatever, so if you got an idea and you're genuinely keen on doing whatever it is you want to do, and like I said, you're young enough, just give it a go. What's the worst that's going to happen? You might end up with one of my. I failed my first business. I ended up with a bit of debt. Had to go get a normal job and spent the next 6-8 months paying that off. So it's normal for failure, right? You got to learn from your mistakes. But that was a kind of a different story too, because there were some other things that happened and that kind of caused that. That was somewhat out of my control. But again, that's part of the experience of learning how to deal with business, right? So yeah, just give it a fair shake at the tree and just have a crack at it. That's just the Aussie way, isn't it? Just have a crack
That's it.
and see what happens, right?
Yep. No, that's fantastic advice. And thank you so much for jumping on and for giving up your time within days of opening up. I mean, it's just going to be fantastic. And I wish you all the very best. And I am confident that the Rocky community is going to get behind yourself and Lily and your family, your boys. And yeah, no doubt you've created an amazing space and I can't wait to visit.
Hopefully. So at the moment, like I said, it is at a reduced capacity. It's just the main bar and the beer garden to the left. And we've had the men's shed come here and help us with a temporary live stage. So thanks
Fantastic.
for their help. And they'll be finishing it off hopefully on Thursday. So that'll be good. Cutting it a bit close, but
Nothing like the
oh,
11th
look,
to
they're
keep life
confident.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. If not, I'll be out there at midnight screwing sheeting down or whatever to get it done. But
Yes,
no, look, we're very excited to have the local community here, and yeah, come on down if you want a nice cold beer at 0 degrees. That's what our fridge runs at. You won't get a cold beer in Rocky, I don't think. So
fair
straight
enough.
from the fridge.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Very much appreciated. Hey.
You are very welcome.